17 violations in just 90 days. Vincent Morrison walks into Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom and refuses to stand. He says his money puts him above the rules, live on the record. The room freezes. The judge doesn't blink. When wealth challenges justice face to face, who actually wins in a courtroom built for equality? The hearing begins abruptly. No introductions, no pleasantries. Judge Frank Caprio looks directly at Vincent Morrison and speaks with deliberate restraint. This courtroom is not impressed by success, not intimidated by money, and not for sale. The clerk calls the court to order. Everyone stands. Everyone except Morrison. He remains seated, calm, intentional. His posture is relaxed, his expression bored, as if the ritual unfolding around him is a cheap performance. This is not confusion. This is defiance. Morrison knows exactly what he is doing, and he wants it witnessed. Caprio does not raise his voice. He simply instructs, "Stand up." Morrison tilts his head, smirks. "I'm more comfortable sitting, Judge." The words land like a slap. The room drops into a heavy silence. This is no longer about traffic violations. Authority has just been challenged on record. Caprio leans forward. "You believe your comfort outweighs the law," Morrison replies casually. "I believe respect has to be earned." Caprio cuts him off, his tone icy. Money does not create exceptions in this room. Then comes the question that reframes the entire hearing. If wealth can justify contempt, what is the law worth when it faces someone who believes he stands above it? No one moves. The hearing has become a confrontation. Morrison straightens slightly, sensing an opening. He does not apologize, he justifies. "I pay more in taxes than most people in this room will earn in a lifetime." He says, voice firm, practiced. "My companies employ hundreds. I fund local campaigns. I keep the city moving." Each claim is delivered like a receipt slid across the bench. The message is unmistakable: contribution equals privilege. If the system benefits from him, the system should bend for him. Caprio does not look impressed. He interrupts before the list grows longer. "None of that is on trial," he says. "We are not here to measure your balance sheet." His tone sharpens. "This hearing stopped being about citations the moment you decided respect was optional." The courtroom tightens. Caprio continues, deliberate and precise. "The law protects your property, your contracts, your businesses. In return, it binds your conduct. You don't get one without the other." Morrison scoffs. "That's idealism," he replies. "In the real world, people like me shape the rules. We write the laws you enforce." The statement lands hard. It is not a slip. It is a claim of ownership. A declaration that law is negotiable, purchasable, contingent on influence. Caprio leans forward, eyes locked. "You are describing power," he says. "Not law." He pauses, letting the distinction sink in. Power demands obedience. Law demands accountability. He points to the floor between them. "This room exists because those two things are not the same." Morrison presses on, voice rising. "Then prove it," he says. "Prove this isn't theater. The challenge is open, public, and recorded." Caprio does not hesitate. "I will," he replies. "But understand this first." His voice drops. "The moment you claim the law was something to be written by people like you, you turned a hearing into evidence." The air goes still. The first crest of the storm has arrived. Caprio opens the file and does not look up at first. He lets the paper control the room. 17 violations in 3 months, he says slowly, making sure every word lands. Not warnings, not clerical errors. 17 documented decisions to ignore the law. He finally raises his eyes. "Explain that to this court." Morrison leans forward, irritated. "I drive more than most people. Of course the numbers are higher," he argues. "I have meetings, responsibilities, places to be. That does not make me reckless. It makes me busy." His tone is sharp, defensive, confident that logic will protect him. Caprio answers immediately. "No, it makes you entitled," he says. "Busy people obey traffic lights every day. Responsibility does not cancel restraint. It demands it." Morrison shakes his head. "You are turning statistics into character assassination." Caprio fires back. "Statistics reveal character when behavior repeats." His voice hardens. "1 violation is a lapse. 17 is a statement." Morrison raises his voice now. "So you are saying I am dangerous?" Caprio does not hesitate. I am saying you behave as if consequences are optional, he replies. That is dangerous in any citizen. It is intolerable in someone who claims to lead. Caprio gestures toward the room. Look around, he says. Every person here followed procedure before a word was spoken. They stood because the court required it, not because they agreed with me. He turns back to Morrison. You sat because you believed the rule did not apply to you. Morrison scoffs. This is moral theater. Caprio steps forward. No. This is a boundary, he says. This court exists to decide whether the law applies equally or whether money rewrites it in public. Morrison falls silent, not because he agrees, but because the argument has narrowed to one brutal point. The record is no longer evidence. It is a mirror, and it is showing him exactly how he sees the law. Morrison doesn't retreat. He laughs short, dismissive, the sound of someone who finds the entire proceeding beneath him. Let me explain something to you, Judge. His voice carries practiced condescension, the tone reserved for explaining obvious truths to slow learners. I donated $340,000 to this city's infrastructure budget last year. My foundation funded the new traffic signal system on Broad Street. You know, the one that reduced accidents by 18%? He pauses, lets the number settle like a bill presented for payment. So when you lecture me about following rules, understand something: I don't just follow them. I write the checks that create them. The courtroom stiffens. Morrison doesn't notice or doesn't care. My time isn't measured in hours, Judge. It's measured in contracts signed, deals closed, employees paid. While we've been sitting here for 20 minutes, my companies have generated enough revenue to cover your annual salary 3 times over. He smirks. That's not arrogance. That's arithmetic. And arithmetic doesn't care about your moral speeches. Caprio remains motionless. Morrison mistakes the silence for surrender and presses harder. You want accountability? Here it is. I'm accountable to boards, shareholders, federal regulators who actually matter. This hearing, he waves dismissively. This is municipal theater, a speed bump, an inconvenience I'm tolerating because my attorney recommended appearance over principle. His voice drips with disdain. So let's stop pretending these 17 violations parking tickets, Judge. Parking tickets represent some moral crisis. They represent a busy man prioritizing real responsibilities over trivial compliance. He leans back, arms crossed, satisfaction radiating from his posture. I fund the systems you enforce. I employ people who vote for the officials who appointed you. My contributions keep this city functional. His smile is cold superior. So yes, I believe there should be recognition that someone operating at my level deserves different treatment than someone with nothing to lose. He says it plainly without shame, as if the logic is self-evident. What he's actually done is confess to buying exemption. On camera. Under oath. And he thinks he's winning. Caprio's response is delivered with devastating calm. Mr. Morrison, you've just described a transaction, not a defense. Morrison's smirk doesn't fade. Call it what you want. I call it reality. Caprio's eyes narrow. Reality is 17 documented violations. Your donations are irrelevant. Morrison laughs again, louder this time, performative. Irrelevant, Judge. Without people like me, this courtroom doesn't have electricity. The traffic lights you're so concerned about, they exist because of my money, not your authority. Caprio stands slowly. The movement silences the room. Your donations purchased infrastructure. They did not purchase immunity. Morrison waves the distinction away. Semantics. The point is, my contribution far exceeds my violations. Its basic accounting credit outweighs debt. Caprio's voice drops, becomes surgical. This isn't accounting, Mr. Morrison. It's law. And law doesn't calculate net worth before determining guilt. Morrison's smirk widens into something uglier. Doesn't it, though? Be honest, Judge. When was the last time someone from my tax bracket sat in this room answering for parking tickets? He pauses. Never. Because people at my level resolve these things privately. This hearing only exists because I refuse to play the game, because I told my attorney to let it proceed just to prove how absurd the whole system is. The admission lands like a bomb. He's not here because he's required. He's here as demonstration proof that the law as theater enforcement is negotiable, and wealthy men only face consequences when they choose to. Morrison continues, voice-dripping condescension. So let's accelerate this. You'll assign whatever penalty makes you feel important. I'll write a check that means nothing to my balance, and tomorrow I'll continue making decisions that actually matter while you process your next defendant who can't afford to dismiss you as easily. Caprio's jaw tightens. You believe you're dismissing me? Morrison's laugh is sharp. I believe I'm humoring you. There's a difference. He gestures broadly. This entire process, the standing, the formality, the moral indignation, it's performance art for people who need to believe the system has teeth. His voice hardens with contempt. But we both know the truth. Money doesn't just talk, Judge. It rewrites scripts. Morrison isn't finished. He leans forward, voice shifting into something colder, more deliberate. Let me tell you what happens after this hearing ends. He speaks slowly, enunciating each word like a threat wrapped in prophecy. I walk out. My attorney files whatever paperwork is required. The fines, whatever you decide, get paid by an assistant I'll never meet. And this entire afternoon becomes an anecdote I tell at fundraisers about municipal overreach. He pauses, smile spreading. But you stay here, processing traffic violations, pretending parking tickets are constitutional crises, believing your little speeches about equality actually change anything. The contempt is no longer veiled, it's weaponized. The law you're so proud of enforcing, I've rewritten it 3 times through lobbying groups you've never heard of. The regulations you cite, drafted by firms my companies retain. The system you represent, he laughs. It exists because people like me allow it to exist. The courtroom is frozen. No one breathes. Morrison continues, voice rising with self-satisfaction. So when you ask what gives me the right to ignore these citations, here's your answer. Contribution creates consideration. Always has. Always will. I don't need exemption written into law. I have it written into reality. He spreads his hands. This hearing proves it. You can lecture me about equality all you want. We both know the outcome. I pay, I leave. Nothing changes. Because the law doesn't control people at my level, Judge. We control the law. The statement hangs in the air like smoke after explosion. Morrison sits back completely composed, utterly confident he's just delivered checkmate. What he doesn't see, what his arrogance blinds him to, is Caprio's expression. Not anger, not shock. Something worse, satisfaction. The kind a prosecutor gets when a defendant confesses without realizing the microphone was live. Morrison thinks he won the argument. He actually just handed over the verdict. And it's all on record. Every contemptuous word. Every admission of bought influence. Every claim that wealth rewrites law. Documented, transcribed, irreversible. Caprio's voice when he finally speaks is quiet, almost gentle. Thank you, Mr. Morrison. You just confessed to everything I needed to prove. Morrison's smirk falters. Confess to what? Caprio's smile is cold. That you don't believe in law. You believe in purchase. And you just said so under oath. Caprio's words hang in the air. You just said so under oath. Morrison's smirk finally cracks. Not into fear, into irritation. He shifts in his seat, checks his watch with theatrical obviousness. Are we finished here? I have a 3:00 p.m. board meeting that actually matters. The dismissal is casual, complete. Caprio's voice cuts through. We're finished when I say we're finished. Stand up. Morrison doesn't move. He sighs, the sound of someone enduring tedious bureaucracy. Judge, I've been sitting for 40 minutes. I'm comfortable where I am. The bailiff steps forward. Caprio raises one hand, stopping him. He wants Morrison to own this moment completely. Mr. Morrison, I'm ordering you to stand. This is not a request. Morrison laughs, short, sharp, contemptuous. And if I don't, what exactly are you going to do? The challenge is naked, now stripped of pretense. The room holds its breath. Caprio's response is measured, deliberate. I will hold you in contempt of court. That carries immediate detention and potential criminal charges. Morrison's eyebrows rise in mock surprise. Contempt for sitting? He looks around the courtroom as if appealing to an audience. Ladies and gentlemen, witness municipal tyranny. A man remains seated and faces imprisonment. His voice drips sarcasm. How very proportional. How very just. He turns back to Caprio, smile widening. Go ahead, Judge. Arrest me for comfort. Let's see how that plays in tomorrow's headlines. Local judge jails philanthropist over seating preference. I'm sure that'll do wonders for your reputation. The threat is clear. Public humiliation, media warfare, reputational destruction. Morrison thinks he's found leverage. Caprio's expression doesn't change. Stand up now, or I will direct the bailiff to physically remove you from that chair and place you in custody. Morrison crosses his arms, settles deeper into his seat. I'd like to see you try. The words are quiet but unmistakable. This is no longer defiance. It's dare. He's testing whether the court has actual authority or just theatrical bluster. Caprio doesn't hesitate. Bailiff! The officer moves forward immediately. Morrison's smile fades into something harder. You're actually doing this. His voice carries disbelief mixed with anger. Over sitting. You're creating a federal incident over a man sitting in a chair. Caprio's response is ice. No, I'm enforcing courtroom protocol you've repeatedly refused to follow after explicit instruction. The reason doesn't matter. Your compliance does. The bailiff reaches Morrison's side. Morrison doesn't stand. He stares at Caprio with pure contempt, daring him to follow through. Touch me, and I'll have your badge by sunset. Morrison's threat shifts the atmosphere. No longer just defiance, now it's warfare. The bailiff hesitates, glances at Caprio. Morrison sees the hesitation and pounces. That's right. Think very carefully before you put hands on me. His voice is calm again, controlled the businessman negotiating from perceived strength. Judge Caprio, let me explain something about power, since you seem confused. He leans forward, still seated, utterly relaxed. I know 3 city councilors personally. I golf with the mayor quarterly. My attorney, the one I didn't bother bringing today because I thought this was beneath legal representation, has argued before the state Supreme Court. He pauses, letting the connections accumulate like armor. So, before you escalate this into something you can't walk back, consider your position carefully. His smile returns colder now. Judges are elected Caprio, or appointed by elected officials. Either way, you answer to a political structure I've spent 20 years cultivating relationships within. The threat is no longer implicit. It's explicit. Cross me and I'll destroy your career through channels you can't defend against. The courtroom is dead silent. Someone coughs nervously. Morrison continues, voice softening into something almost friendly. I'm not saying you're corrupt. I'm saying you're practical, smart. You understand how systems work. He gestures reasonably. So let's be adults. You've made your point. I've made mine. We both walk away claiming victory, and nobody's career gets dismantled over traffic citations. He spreads his hands. That's not a threat, Judge. That's me offering you an exit ramp before this becomes mutually destructive. Caprio's face remains expressionless. Morrison mistakes the silence for consideration. I'll even make it easy. Tell me the total. I'll write a check right now. Double the fines, call it a donation to the court system. We shake hands for the cameras, and this whole unpleasant afternoon gets reframed as civic engagement. His voice hardens slightly. But if you insist on pursuing contempt charges, if you actually try to detain me, then we stop being reasonable men having a disagreement and become enemies. And trust me, Judge, you don't want me as an enemy. The threat lingers, toxic and undeniable. Morrison just threatened a sitting judge on record in open court with witnesses and cameras capturing every word. He thinks he's negotiating. He's actually committing a crime. Caprio lets the silence stretch, lets Morrison's words settle into the transcript like evidence arranging itself. Then he speaks, voice quiet but carrying absolute authority. Mr. Morrison, you just threatened a judicial officer during official proceedings. That is a separate criminal offense. Do you understand what you've done? Morrison's smile doesn't fade. I understand. I'm offering you a solution. Take it or don't, but don't pretend I'm the aggressor here when you're the one escalating minor violations into constitutional theater. Caprio stands. The movement is slow, deliberate, final. You are under arrest for contempt of court and intimidation of a judicial officer. His voice fills the chamber with cold authority. Morrison's smile vanishes. You can't be serious. Caprio's gavel strikes once. Hard. The sound echoes like gunshot. Bailiff, take him into custody immediately. Morrison's voice rises, all pretense of calm evaporating. This is insane. You're arresting me for sitting and speaking honestly. The bailiff moves forward. Morrison stands abruptly. Too late, the defiance now meaningless. I'll have your job for this. You hear me? Your career is over. His voice cracks with genuine shock. He actually believed his money, his connections, his threats would work. He calculated that Caprio would bend rather than risk political warfare. He was wrong. Caprio's response is delivered with devastating calm. My career will be evaluated by appellate courts and judicial review boards. Yours is being evaluated by a transcript showing contempt, bribery attempts, and direct threats against a sitting judge. Morrison backs away from the bailiff's approach. You're making a mistake, a serious mistake. Caprio nods to the officer. Proceed. The bailiff reaches for Morrison's arm. Morrison jerks away violently. Don't touch me. His voice is no longer controlled. It's panic edged with fury. I will sue this city into bankruptcy. Every person in this room will be named in the federal litigation. The bailiff grabs his wrist, begins turning him around. Morrison resists, pulling against the grip. Get your hands off me, I have rights. Caprio's voice cuts through the struggle. You have the right to remain silent. I suggest you exercise it. Morrison has turned, hands pulled behind his back. The sound of handcuffs clicking into place is impossibly loud through the microphones. His face is red veins visible in his neck. This is tyranny. This is abuse of power. Caprio responds without emotion. This is consequence. Something you claimed didn't apply to people at your level. The bailiff begins moving Morrison toward the exit. He resists each step, forcing the officer to physically guide him. You'll regret this. I promise you'll regret this. The courtroom watches in stunned silence as Vincent Morrison, philanthropist, business leader, self-proclaimed architect of the law, is walked out in handcuffs, still shouting threats that grow fainter as the door closes behind him. Caprio remains standing, both hands on the bench. He looks toward the camera's expression carved from stone. Let the record show that wealth does not purchase exemption from law. It never has. It never will. He pauses. And when someone mistakes money for immunity, this court will demonstrate the difference, publicly, permanently. The gavel strikes, final, absolute. The question Morrison posed, can money buy an exit, has been answered. Not with words, with handcuffs. The holding cell is 8 feet by 10 feet, concrete walls, metal bench bolted to the floor, fluorescent light humming overhead with a flicker that never quite resolves. Morrison sits on the bench, handcuffs removed, jacket still immaculate despite the chaos of arrest. He checks his wrist reflexively, then remembers. His watch was confiscated during intake. Along with his phone, his wallet, his keys, his belt. Everything that identifies him as Vincent Morrison, philanthropist and power broker, has been placed in a plastic bag and logged into evidence. He's alone. Completely alone for the first time in decades. No assistant to call, no attorney on speed dial, no board member to activate political connections. The silence is profound, suffocating. He stands, paces the narrow space. 3 steps forward, turn, 3 steps back. His shoes make no sound on the concrete. Outside the cell, he hears voices, indistinct conversations, the rattle of keys, doors opening and closing. Normal procedure. The machinery of justice grinding forward without pause, without consideration for who he is or what he owns. 40 minutes pass, maybe an hour. He has no way to measure time. The fluorescent light doesn't change. The sounds continue muffled and distant. Morrison sits again, tries to compose himself. This is temporary, a mistake, an overreach that will be corrected the moment his attorney arrives. He rehearses the conversation, the lawsuit, the public statement about judicial abuse, the political pressure that will force Caprio's resignation. He builds the narrative carefully, brick by brick, constructing the future where this humiliation is transformed into vindication. A corrections officer appears at the cell door. Young, maybe 30, face utterly neutral. Morrison, on your feet. Vincent stands, immediately, relief flooding through him. Finally, someone has fixed this. The officer unlocks the door, gestures him forward. You're being processed. Morrison steps out, starts to speak. It's about time. I need to contact my attorney immediately. This entire arrest was unlawful, and I'm prepared to file federal charges against everyone involved in this abuse of authority. The officer doesn't respond, doesn't acknowledge the speech, doesn't even look impressed or intimidated. He simply points down the hallway. Processing, move. Morrison's relief cracks slightly. Did you hear what I said? I'm filing federal charges. That includes anyone who fails to expedite my release. The officer's expression doesn't change. Processing. Move. Now. The tone is flat, bored, the voice of someone who's heard every threat, every demand, every claim of importance 1,000 times before and remains utterly unmoved. Morrison walks. The officer follows. They pass other cells, other detainees, a man in torn jeans arguing with someone unseen, a woman sleeping on a bench, another man staring at the wall, silent and still. Morrison doesn't look at them. He focuses on the hallway ahead, on maintaining dignity, on believing this is still an aberration that will be corrected. They reach a desk. Another officer, older gray hair, reading glasses, perched on his nose, typing something into a computer. Morrison Vincent, contempt and intimidation. The first officer states it clinically without emphasis. The older officer nods, doesn't look up. Standard booking, 4-hour hold minimum per standing order. Attorney contact permitted after processing completes. Morrison's voice rises. 4 hours? That's absurd. I demand immediate release and access to legal counsel. The older officer finally looks up, expression utterly disinterested. Demand noted. You'll be processed like everyone else. Sit down. Wait your turn. Morrison doesn't sit. You don't understand. I'm not everyone else. I have rights. I have attorneys on retainer who need to be contacted immediately. The older officer removes his glasses, sets them on the desk with deliberate care. Mr. Morrison, everyone in this facility has rights. Everyone has attorneys or will be appointed one. You're not special here. You're a detainee awaiting processing. Now sit down before you add additional charges to your file. The words land like physical blows. You're not special here. Morrison's face flushes. This is outrageous. Do you have any idea who I am? The officer's response is immediate, crushing. I know exactly who you are. You're inmate processing number 47 for today. That's your identity until you're released. Now sit down. Morrison remains standing, hands clenched. I want to speak to a supervisor, immediately. The officer sighs, picks up a phone, presses 2 buttons. Captain, got a detainee demanding special accommodation. Morrison. Contempt charge. Pause. Yes, sir. Understood. He hangs up. Looks at Morrison. Captain says you wait like everyone else. Processing time is currently 90 minutes behind schedule. You'll be called when it's your turn. Morrison's voice cracks slightly. 90 minutes. I've already been here over an hour. The officer nods. Correct. So you're looking at approximately 2.5 more hours before processing completes. Then you start your 4-hour hold. The math is brutal. 6.5 hours minimum. Morrison's face drains. That's unacceptable. I have a board meeting at 3:00 p.m. I have obligations. The officer's expression doesn't shift. Should have thought about that before threatening a judge. He returns his attention to the computer. Sit down, Mr. Morrison. There's a bench behind you. Make yourself comfortable. Morrison doesn't move, can't move. His entire adult life has been structured around access, efficiency, priority treatment. Waiting rooms that clear when he arrives. Reservations that materialize regardless of capacity. Phone calls that get answered immediately regardless of time. And now he's being told to wait. Like anyone else. Like someone without influence. I'm calling my attorney the moment I'm allowed access to a phone. Morrison says, voice tight. The officer nods without looking up. You'll get your phone call after processing. Standard procedure. Morrison's voice rises again. Standard procedure. I have 5 attorneys on retainer. I have direct lines to partners at the city's 3 largest firms. This situation will be resolved within the hour. The officer finally looks up, expression somewhere between boredom and pity. Mr. Morrison, your attorneys can't do anything until you're processed, booked, and officially detained. Even if you called them right now, they'd tell you the same thing. Wait. Follow procedure. Don't make it worse. The truth of that statement settles like lead. Morrison has no leverage. His money, his connections, his power exist outside these walls. In here, they're abstractions. Meaningless. He's just another body moving through the system, subject to the same delays, the same rules, the same indifference. He sits finally heavily on the bench. The officer returns to his typing. Time crawls forward, measured in fluorescent hum, and distant voices each minute stripping away another layer of certainty that this can be fixed quickly, that someone will intervene, that Vincent Morrison still controls his own reality. 2 hours pass, maybe more. Morrison's sense of time has disintegrated. He's been fingerprinted, photographed, his personal information entered into databases he didn't know existed. Every question answered with clinical efficiency. No one cares about his explanations. No one asks for context. They process him like inventory, reducing his identity to form fields and case numbers. He's given a medical screening, asked about allergies, medications, emergency contacts. The questions are routine delivered without interest in the answers. Finally, he's allowed his phone call. He's escorted to a payphone, an actual payphone institutional gray plastic receiver worn smooth by thousands of previous hands. The corrections officer hands him a quarter. One call, 5 minutes maximum. Morrison takes the coin, stares at it. He hasn't used a payphone in 20 years, hasn't handled loose change in longer. He dials his attorney's direct line from memory, hands shaking slightly. The phone rings. Once, twice, 3 times. Voicemail. He tries again. Same result. His attorney is in court or unavailable or simply hasn't seen the unknown number flash across his screen. Morrison's voice when he leaves the message is strained, barely controlled. David, it's Vincent. I've been arrested. Contempt of court. I'm being held at municipal detention. Get here immediately. I don't care what you're doing. Drop it and get here now, he hangs up. The officer gestures. Back to holding. Morrison's voice cracks. Can I try another number? The officer shakes his head. One call. That's the rule. Morrison's desperation breaks through completely. I just got voicemail. That doesn't count. I didn't actually speak to anyone. The officer's response is matter-of-fact, entirely unsympathetic. You made your call. Whether someone answered isn't my problem. Back to holding. Morrison doesn't move. You don't understand. Without legal counsel, I'm stuck here for the full duration. That's 6 more hours. I have responsibilities, meetings, people depending on me. The officer's expression doesn't change. Should have thought about that before you refused to stand when a judge told you to. Move. Morrison is escorted back to the cell. The door closes with a metallic clang that reverberates through his chest. He's alone again, completely alone. No phone, no attorney, no way to contact the network of influence he spent decades building. For the first time in his adult life, Vincent Morrison cannot solve a problem by spending money or making calls or leveraging relationships. He can only wait 4 more hours, sitting in concrete silence surrounded by walls that don't care about his net worth, his political connections, or his carefully constructed belief that people like him operate under different rules. He sits on the metal bench, puts his head in his hands, and for the first time a question penetrates the armor of certainty he's worn for years. When money can't speak, when influence can't reach, when power has no purchase, what remains? Who is Vincent Morrison without the apparatus that's defined him? The answer doesn't come. Just silence. Cold, indifferent, absolute. The kind of silence that exists when the world stops performing for you. When nobody cares. When you're truly, finally, completely ordinary. And the realization that follows is worse than the arrest, worse than the handcuffs, worse than the cell. For 4 hours, maybe longer, Vincent Morrison doesn't exist as anything special. He's just a number. Inmate 47, waiting, like everyone else. 6 hours after his arrest, Vincent Morrison is escorted back into the courtroom. The change is immediate, visible, undeniable. His suit is wrinkled. His hair, previously styled with precision, falls slightly across his forehead. His tie is loosened. But the real transformation isn't physical. It's in his posture. The swagger is gone. The smirk absent. His shoulders are drawn inward, slightly defensive rather than commanding. His eyes don't challenge. They avoid. The bailiff brings him to the defense table. Morrison stands without being told. The contrast to 6 hours ago is staggering. When Judge Caprio enters, Morrison remains standing. His hands are clasped in front of him, not crossed over his chest. His weight shifts foot to foot, subtle nervousness, replacing the earlier arrogant stillness. Caprio takes his seat, arranges papers with deliberate slowness. He doesn't look at Morrison immediately. The silence stretches. 20 seconds. 40. A full minute. Morrison doesn't speak, doesn't interrupt, just waits the way thousands of defendants have waited before him. Finally, Caprio looks up. His expression is neutral clinical, revealing nothing. Mr. Morrison, his voice is flat, stripped of anger or satisfaction. You were detained for 6 hours. Standard procedure for contempt and intimidation charges. During that time, you were processed, photographed, fingerprinted, and held in a cell identical to every other detainee in this facility. He pauses. No exceptions were made, no special accommodations granted. You were treated exactly as the law prescribes for someone who threatens a judge and refuses lawful orders. Morrison's jaw tightens, but he doesn't respond. Caprio continues. Your attorney has filed an emergency motion for release pending charges review. That motion has been denied. You remain subject to this court's jurisdiction until I decide otherwise. Morrison's face pales, but he stays silent. Caprio leans forward slightly. Before we proceed, I want to establish something clearly. You are standing right now because you chose to stand. Not because I ordered you, not because the bailiff forced you. You made a decision to comply with basic courtroom protocol. He lets that settle. Why? The question hangs in the air. Morrison's mouth closes. His voice, when it finally emerges, is quiet, strained. Because it's required, Your Honor. Caprio's eyebrow raises fractionally. 6 hours ago, it was also required. What changed? Morrison swallows hard. His hands tighten their clasp. I understand now that compliance isn't optional. Caprio doesn't react to the admission. You understand, or you've calculated, that continued defiance will extend your detention. The question is brutal in its precision. It offers Morrison no easy escape. If he claims genuine understanding, he admits his earlier behavior was willful. If he admits calculation, he reveals continued contempt masked by strategic compliance. Morrison stands trapped between honest confession and tactical positioning. His voice is barely audible. Both, Your Honor. The admission is startling. Caprio's expression doesn't change, but something shifts in the room's energy. Morrison continues, words coming slowly, painfully. I understand that the rules apply, and I've calculated that fighting them only hurts me. Caprio nods once. At least you're honest about the motivation. He pulls Morrison's file toward him. 6 hours in a cell doesn't transform character, Mr. Morrison. It just removes the tools you use to avoid consequence. No phone, no attorney, no influence. Just you and the reality that money can't negotiate. He looks up. So now we determine whether this compliance is performance or actual recognition that your previous behavior was unacceptable. Caprio sets down the file, gestures to Morrison. You have an opportunity to address this court. Use it carefully. Morrison takes a breath, composing himself. When he speaks, his voice lacks the earlier confidence, but retains structure, the businessman accustomed to presentations, even under duress. Your Honor, I want to apologize to this court. He pauses. 6 hours ago, I entered this room believing my contributions to the city earned me consideration that I now understand was never appropriate to expect. The apology is careful, calculated, hitting, expected notes. Caprio listens without expression. Morrison continues. I refused to stand when ordered. I threatened your position. I attempted to leverage political relationships to intimidate you into leniency. Each admission is delivered with visible effort. Those actions were wrong. They demonstrated contempt for the judicial process and disrespect for your authority. He pauses again, longer this time. I apologize for that behavior. Caprio lets the silence extend after Morrison finishes. Then he speaks, voice neutral. You apologize for the behavior. Do you understand why the behavior was wrong? Morrison's face shows confusion. I just explained. It showed contempt for the court. Caprio shakes his head slightly. No. You described what you did. I asked if you understand why it was wrong. The distinction seems subtle, but Morrison senses a trap. His response is cautious. Because it violated protocol, Caprio's voice hardens almost imperceptibly. Protocol is procedure. I'm asking about principle. He leans forward. You refused to stand because you believed your wealth exempted you from showing respect to an institution that serves everyone equally. You threatened me because you believed power purchased through political donations could override judicial independence. You attempted bribery by offering to pay double because you believed money could transform contempt into acceptable behavior. He pauses. Those actions weren't wrong because they violated protocol. They were wrong because they attempted to corrupt the only place in society where wealth is supposed to be irrelevant. Morrison stands very still, processing. Caprio continues relentless. This courtroom is neutral ground. Your bank account doesn't follow you through that door. Your political connections hold no weight at this bench. Your belief that you deserve different treatment because you've donated money becomes void the moment you step inside. His voice drops. You didn't just disrespect me, Mr. Morrison. You disrespected every person who comes here, believing the law will treat them fairly regardless of their net worth. Nashunakunan. Morrison's face shows something that might be genuine comprehension or might be skilled performance. I understand, Your Honor. Caprio's eyes narrow. What do you understand? Morrison's voice is quieter now, less structured. I understand that this courtroom is supposed to be equal ground, that my wealth shouldn't matter here, that by trying to use it, I undermine the integrity of the process. He swallows. I understand that I treated this court as if it was for sale, and that insults everyone who depends on it to be impartial. Caprio watches him for a long moment, searching for calculation or sincerity. What changed your understanding? The 6 hours in a cell, or the realization that continued defiance would cost you more than compliance? Morrison's answer comes after visible internal struggle. Honestly, both. The cell removed my ability to fix this with money or connections. That forced me to actually think about what I'd done instead of just planning how to escape consequence. He pauses. I still don't know if I truly understand, but I know I was wrong, and I know I can't buy my way out of being wrong. Caprio opens the sentencing file, pulls up documents on the courtroom monitor. Mr. Morrison, this court now faces a decision. He gestures to the charges listed on screen. Contempt of court, intimidation of a judicial officer, attempted bribery, disorderly conduct. Each charge carries potential penalties, including fines, probation, and incarceration. Morrison's face drains. Caprio continues, voice measured. I could impose maximum penalties. The law allows it. Your behavior certainly justifies it. He pauses, lets the possibility breathe. But this court's purpose is not punishment for its own sake. It's correction of behavior and protection of institutional integrity. He looks directly at Morrison. You spent 6 hours experiencing what every defendant without money experiences. Waiting, following procedure, being treated as just another person subject to law. That was educational. But education without accountability is incomplete. Caprio pulls up Morrison's financial records. You claimed earlier that fines mean nothing to your balance. You offered to double the penalties and call it a donation. That statement revealed exactly why traditional fines won't correct your behavior. He scrolls through the documents. So this court will impose penalties designed specifically for someone who believes money erases consequence. Morrison's hands tighten, but he remains silent. Caprio continues. For the 17 traffic violations, total fine $40, $800. You will pay it, but not to the court. He clicks to a new screen. You will pay it directly to the city's public defender fund, not as a donation you can write off, as restitution ordered by the court, non-tax deductible, due within 30 days. Morrison nods slowly. Caprio isn't finished. For contempt of court, 100 hours community service, not at a nonprofit you fund, not at an organization where you serve on the board. You will report to the Public Works Department and perform manual labor under direct supervision. Trash collection, street cleaning, park maintenance, whatever they assign. Morrison's face shows shock, but he doesn't object. For intimidation of a judicial officer, Caprio's voice hardens, 1-year probation. During that period, any traffic violation, any failure to appear when summoned, any attempt to use influence to avoid legal obligation will result in immediate incarceration for the maximum term allowed by law. He pauses. Additionally, you are prohibited from making political donations to any candidate, party, or campaign for 12 months. Not because political speech isn't protected, but because you explicitly stated you used donations to purchase influence over judicial appointments. That ends now. Morrison's voice emerges strained. Your Honor, that's my First Amendment right. Caprio's response is immediate. Your First Amendment right remains intact. You can speak protest advocate all you want. You just can't purchase political access for 12 months because you admitted on record that you used donations as leverage to threaten judges. He closes the file. These penalties are designed to address your specific belief that wealth creates exemption. You will pay money you can't claim as charitable. You will perform labor you can't delegate. You will lose political influence you weaponized. And you will do all of it knowing that non-compliance means jail. Caprio looks at Morrison directly. This isn't punishment, Mr. Morrison. This is the court teaching you something your money prevented you from learning. That the law applies equally. That consequence can't be purchased. That citizenship requires more than writing checks. He pauses. Do you understand these terms? Morrison's voice is quiet but clear. Yes, Your Honor. Caprio's gavel rises. Then these penalties are imposed immediately. Compliance review in 90 days. Failure to comply results in immediate warrant for your arrest. The gavel falls. Final. Absolute. Caprio isn't finished. The previous penalties addressed contempt and intimidation. Now he returns to the violations that started everything. We still have 17 traffic citations to resolve. He pulls up the complete list on the monitor. Each violation displayed with date, location, specific infraction. Speeding in a school zone. Running a red light. Illegal parking in a fire lane. Double parking in a commercial district. Failure to yield. Reckless driving. The list scrolls past each entry a separate decision to prioritize convenience over safety. For each violation, this court imposes the maximum fine allowed by statute. Caprio reads the amounts. $500 for school zone speeding, $350 for running a red light, $250 for fire lane violation. The numbers accumulate. $5,800 in total fines, plus court costs, administrative fees, and processing charges. Total financial penalty, $7,340. Morrison's face tightens, but he remains silent. The amount is significant even for him. More importantly, it's public documented and non-negotiable. Caprio continues. Additionally, 6 points assessed against your license for the most serious violations. That brings your total accumulated points to 14. State law requires license suspension at 15 points. He pauses, letting the proximity to that threshold register. One more violation within the next 12 months, any violation results in automatic suspension, regardless of circumstances. Morrison's jaw clenches. His ability to drive himself to maintain the appearance of unrestricted mobility hangs by a single point. Furthermore, Caprio's voice hardens, you are required to complete an 8-hour defensive driving course. Not online, in person, in a classroom with other violators. The specification is deliberate. Morrison will sit in a room with people who can't afford private attorneys, who take the bus to traffic school, who face real hardship from license suspension. He'll be just another student, no special seating, no abbreviated schedule, no accommodation for his importance. The course must be completed within 60 days. Proof of completion submitted to this court, or the penalties double, and your license is suspended pending compliance. Caprio taps the screen. The course schedule is public. Classes meet Tuesday and Thursday, evenings 6:00 p.m. to 10:00 p.m. for 2 weeks. Attendance is mandatory for all 4 sessions. Missing one session means starting over. Morrison's voice emerges, controlled but strained. Your Honor, I have business obligations, evening commitments, board meetings scheduled months in advance. Caprio's response is immediate, uncompromising. Reschedule them. Your business obligations don't supersede court-ordered requirements. You claimed earlier that your time costs thousands per minute. Consider this an expensive lesson in prioritization. The rebuke is surgical. You have 60 days. The course provider doesn't care who you are or what you do. They care that you show up on time, stay for the full session, and complete the curriculum, just like everyone else. Morrison nods stiffly. Caprio pulls up another document. Final requirement regarding the traffic violations. For the next 12 months, any moving violation requires you to appear personally in court. No attorney representation, no written submission. You will stand before whatever judge is assigned and answer for the violation yourself. Morrison's face shows the impact. A year of personal accountability. Every ticket, every citation, every minor infraction requiring his physical presence in a courtroom subject to public record and media attention. These penalties are calculated specifically for someone who believes money and delegation eliminate responsibility. Caprio's voice is cold. You can't pay someone to take the driving course for you. You can't send an attorney to appear instead of you. You can't write a check large enough to erase these requirements. You comply personally or you face suspension, arrest and incarceration. Caprio moves to the next section of the sentence. Regarding your community service obligation, he pulls up details. 100 hours as previously stated, but the assignment requires clarification. Morrison stands rigid waiting. You will not serve at organizations where you hold board positions. You will not volunteer at nonprofits or foundation funds. You will not perform service where your name carries influence or recognition. He clicks to a new screen showing a list of approved service locations. These are the options: city homeless shelter, food preparation, and cleaning duties; municipal sanitation department, street cleaning, and waste collection; public housing maintenance, painting, repairs, groundskeeping; youth recreation center in the lowest income district facility, maintenance and supervision. Each option represents manual, labor direct service to populations Morrison's wealth normally keeps at a distance. You will report to your assigned location weekly, 10 hours minimum per week for 10 weeks. Weekends or evenings, your schedule must accommodate their needs, not the reverse. Caprio's emphasis on their needs is pointed. You will wear the same uniform as other volunteers. You will follow the same rules. You will perform the same tasks. The supervisors have been instructed explicitly that your financial status is irrelevant to your assignments. Morrison's attorney finally present after the 6-hour detention half rises. Your Honor, community service is typically coordinated through organizations that utilize professional skills. Caprio cuts him off. Your client's professional skills are business management and wealth accumulation. Those aren't needed for cleaning shelter bathrooms or collecting trash in public parks. The attorney sits. Mr. Morrison's time at manual labor is inefficient use of resources. Caprio's response is sharp. Efficiency isn't the goal. Accountability is. Your client stated on record that his time costs thousands per minute. This court is requiring him to spend 100 hours performing labor that benefits people whose entire monthly income is less than he spends on dinner. He looks at Morrison. You claim contributions earn consideration. This is contribution without recognition, reward, or tax benefit. This is service that costs you time you've assigned monetary value to and returns nothing but the knowledge that you fulfilled a court order. Morrison's voice is quiet. I understand, Your Honor. Caprio isn't convinced. Do you? Because 10 hours weekly means missing business dinners, rescheduling meetings, explaining to clients why you're unavailable Saturday mornings. It means showing up in work clothes that will get dirty. It means taking direction from supervisors who make $40,000 annually. It means doing work you could pay someone else $20 an hour to do, but you can't because the court specifically ordered you to do it yourself. He pauses. That's the point, Mr. Morrison. For 100 hours, your wealth doesn't exempt you. Your position doesn't excuse you. Your contribution to this city doesn't replace your obligation to serve it in ways that can't be delegated or purchased. Morrison nods again, the gesture mechanical. Caprio continues. Compliance is monitored. Each week, your supervisor submits a report. Attendance, attitude, effort, cooperation. Any report indicating you're performing inadequately, demanding special treatment, or attempting to leverage your position results in additional hours added to your requirement. Caprio closes the sentencing documents, looks directly at Morrison. Before I finalize this sentence, I want to address what this case represents. His voice shifts, becomes less judicial and more pedagogical. You entered this courtroom believing success purchased exception. You stated explicitly that people at your level deserve different treatment. You claimed your contributions to this city earned you consideration that supersedes traffic law. He pauses. You were wrong, and this sentence is designed to correct that misunderstanding permanently. He gestures broadly. Success creates opportunity. You have opportunities most people will never access. Better lawyers, financial cushions, networks of influence, resources to weather consequences that would destroy someone else. Morrison listens, face carefully neutral. Those opportunities are yours. You earned them. This court doesn't dispute that. But opportunity is not exemption. Wealth is not immunity. Success is not a license to ignore law. Caprio's voice hardens. You can hire attorneys to navigate legal complexity. You cannot hire them to avoid legal accountability. You can make donations that benefit communities. You cannot use those donations to purchase deference when you violate the rules that protect those communities. You can build businesses that employ hundreds. You cannot claim that employment justifies endangering those employees through reckless driving. He stands the formal posture signaling conclusion. This sentence, 7,300 before and fines 100 hours, manual service, 12 months probation, defensive driving courses, personal court appearances, all of it is structured to teach one lesson. He looks at Morrison directly. The law doesn't calculate your net worth before determining your guilt. It doesn't weigh your contributions against your violations. It doesn't grant leniency based on arithmetic. It applies equally regardless of who you are, what you own, or who you know. Morrison's voice emerges. I understand, Your Honor, and I accept the sentence. Caprio's eyes narrow. You accept it because you have no choice. Whether you understand it remains to be seen. He picks up his gavel. This court will review your compliance in 90 days. At that time, you will appear personally and provide documentation of fine payment, service hours completed, and course attendance. You will also provide a written statement explaining what you've learned about the relationship between wealth and accountability. Morrison's face shows surprise. A written statement? Caprio nods. 500 words minimum, not drafted by your attorney, written by you, explaining whether you still believe money should purchase different treatment under law, and if not, what changed your understanding. The requirement is unusual but purposeful. Morrison will have to articulate in his own words whether the sentence achieved its goal or whether he's simply performing compliance while maintaining his original beliefs. That statement becomes part of your permanent record. If you face charges in any jurisdiction in the future, prosecutors and judges will read what you wrote. They'll know whether you genuinely recognize that wealth doesn't create exemption or whether you remain convinced of your superiority while following court orders. Caprio's gavel rises. These terms are final. Compliance is mandatory. Failure results in immediate incarceration. This court is adjourned. The gavel falls. The sound echoes through the chamber. Final. Absolute. Vincent Morrison stands in the aftermath, facing 100 hours of manual labor, 12 months of scrutiny, and the requirement to articulate in writing whether money can purchase exemption from law. The answer documented through fines he must pay and service he must perform is already clear, but he'll have to write it himself, in his own words, for permanent record. The law doesn't negotiate, and today, finally, Vincent Morrison learned that truth the only way someone with his beliefs could learn it. Through consequence he couldn't avoid, couldn't delegate, and couldn't purchase his way out of. Saturday morning, 7:00 a.m., Morrison arrives at the municipal homeless shelter wearing jeans and a plain t-shirt as instructed. The clothing feels foreign, costume-like. He hasn't worn jeans in a decade. The parking lot is half full. Beat-up sedans, rusted trucks, one van with duct tape holding the side mirror. He parks his Mercedes at the far end, suddenly conscious of the vehicle's price tag. The supervisor is waiting inside. Maria Santos, 48, 20 years managing shelter operations. She looks at Morrison with complete neutrality, not impressed, not hostile, just assessing another volunteer. You're the court order, she states flatly, not a question. Morrison nods. Vincent Morrison, I'm here for community service. Maria checks her clipboard. 100 hours, 10 per week, minimum. She looks up. I don't care why you're here. I care that you show up on time, follow instructions, and don't create problems. Morrison starts to respond. She cuts him off. This isn't a conversation. I'm telling you the rules. You're here to work, not talk about yourself, not network, not get credit for showing up. You work. Clear. Morrison's jaw tightens, but he nods. Maria hands him a name tag. Plain white sticker with volunteer printed in black marker. No name, no title, just volunteer. Kitchen duty today. Report to Carlos. He's head cook. She points toward double doors. Morrison walks through. The kitchen is institutional. Commercial stoves, industrial dishwashers, the smell of bleach and cooking oil. Carlos is stirring something in a massive pot. Late 50s, tattoos on both forearms. He glances at Morrison. You're the new guy. Morrison nods. Good. Take that cart. Load dirty dishes from the dining area. Bring them back. Repeat until breakfast service ends. The cart is metal, 3 shelves wheels that squeak. Morrison pushes it into the dining area. 60 people eating, families, single men, women with children. Conversations overlap. Silverware scraping plates, a child crying. No one looks at him. No one cares who he is. He's just the guy collecting plates. He starts at the nearest table. Stacks dishes carefully. The cart fills quickly. He pushes it back to the kitchen. Unloads onto the counter by the dishwasher. Returns for more. The work is repetitive, mindless, physically tiring in ways his gym workouts never were. An hour passes. His back aches from bending. His hands are greasy from plates. A woman at one table barely looks up as he takes her dishes. "Thank you," she says automatically. Morrison pauses. "You're welcome." The exchange is nothing. Routine. But it's the first time in years someone thanked him for manual labor. Not for donations, not for business decisions, for collecting her plate. He continues working. Another hour. The dining area empties slowly. Final plates collected. Cart returned. Carlos inspects his work. "You'll do," he says. Not praise, just acknowledgement of adequate performance. Maria appears. "Break, 15 minutes, then you're on bathroom cleaning." Morrison's face shows reaction before he can control it. Maria's expression doesn't change. "Problem." Morrison forces his voice steady. No problem." She hands him cleaning supplies. Gloves, spray bottles, scrub brushes. "Men's bathroom. 3 stalls, 2 urinals. All surfaces. You have an hour." She walks away. Morrison stands holding the supplies. This is real. No delegation, no avoidance. Just work that needs doing assigned to him required by court order. Week 3. Morrison arrives at the Youth Recreation Center. Different location, same dynamic. Supervisor introduces himself. Marcus Webb, 32. Former Marine. Lost his left leg below the knee in Afghanistan. Runs the center's maintenance operations with efficiency that makes Morrison's corporate management look chaotic. "You're painting today," Marcus states. "Exterior walls, south side, primer first, paint tomorrow." He hands Morrison coveralls. "Change in the locker room. Meet me outside in 5. Morrison works alongside 2 other volunteers, both court-ordered, both silent about why they're here. The work is hot, tedious, physically demanding. Painting requires reaching, stretching, climbing ladders. Morrison's shoulders burn after the first hour. Marcus checks their progress periodically, offers corrections without judgment. Smooth strokes. Don't overload the brush. That's it. He treats everyone identically. No accommodation for Morrison's age status or obvious discomfort. During lunch break, Morrison sits on the curb. The other volunteers eat silently. Marcus joins them, unwraps a sandwich. They sit in shared exhaustion. Marcus finally speaks. "You're Morrison, the traffic violations guy." Not a question. Morrison tenses. "I saw the news," Marcus continues. "Judge Caprio sent you here, said you needed to learn something." He takes a bite. "You learning?" Morrison's instinct is to deflect, defend, minimize. Instead, he answers honestly. "I don't know yet." Marcus nods. "Fair answer." He gestures to the building. "This center serves 400 kids weekly, most from families making less than you spend monthly on car insurance." Morrison listens. "We operate on a $180,000 annual budget. Your foundation probably spends that on office supplies." Marcus isn't being cruel, just stating facts. "So when guys like you come here court-ordered, I watch to see if you understand the difference between writing checks and actually showing up." Morrison asks, "What's the difference?" Marcus's answer is immediate. "Checks are easy, showing up is hard. Checks buy equipment. Showing up fixes the equipment when it breaks. Checks fund programs. Showing up runs the programs when staff calls in sick." He finishes his sandwich. "Your foundation gave us $25,000 last year. Appreciated. Built our new computer lab. But the lab doesn't run itself. Someone has to be here Tuesday nights teaching kids how to use the computers. Someone has to fix the printers when they jam. Someone has to stay late because a parent is working double shift and can't pick up their kid on time." Morrison absorbs this. Marcus continues. "That someone is usually me or volunteers who choose to be here. Not because a judge ordered them, because they actually care." He stands. So yeah, you're learning. Whether you're learning the right lesson, that's still open. He walks away. Morrison sits on the curb longer than the break allows, thinking about $25,000 that bought equipment, but not presents, donations that funded programs but didn't run them, wealth that created opportunity but required other people's time to make it functional. Week 7. Morrison has developed routines. Saturday mornings at the shelter, Thursday evenings at the recreation center, Tuesday afternoons at public housing maintenance. The work has become familiar but not easy. His body has adjusted. His mind is slower to follow. Small things have changed. He holds doors now, not performatively for cameras, just automatically when someone's behind him. He waits his turn. Actually waits without checking his watch or calculating opportunity cost. He listens when supervisors give instructions instead of interrupting with better ideas. At the shelter, he's loading supplies when a man approaches. 60-something, worn jacket, carries everything he owns in 2 plastic bags. "You're Morrison," the man states. "I've seen you here 6 weeks straight. Early, no complaints." Morrison doesn't know how to respond. The man continues. "I was somebody once. Engineer. Good job. House. Family." He pauses. "Then I wasn't. Job gone. House gone. Family gone. Now I'm here." Morrison listens. The man asks, "You lost something too?" Morrison thinks about the question. Lost isn't the right word. Confronted, maybe. Forced to recognize. "I lost the belief that money made me different," he finally answers. The man nods slowly. "That's something. Most people never lose that. They just get richer or poorer, but the belief stays the same." He shifts his bags. "You're here because a judge made you. I'm here because life did. But we're both here, in the same place, eating the same food, following the same rules." He extends his hand. "I'm Robert." Morrison shakes it. "Vincent." The formality of introduction feels important somehow. Robert asks, "You coming back after your 100 hours?" The question catches Morrison off guard. He hasn't thought beyond compliance. "I don't know," he admits. Robert nods. "Most don't. They do their time and leave. Can't blame them. But some come back, not because they have to, because they finally saw something they couldn't see before." He walks away, leaving Morrison standing with the question hanging. That evening, Morrison sits in his study writing the court-mandated statement, 500 words explaining what he's learned. The cursor blinks on blank screen for 20 minutes. Then he begins typing. Not the statement he'd have written 8 weeks ago. Not the calculated response designed to satisfy requirements while preserving beliefs. Something more difficult, more honest. "I claimed wealth earned me different treatment. I was wrong. Not because the law says so, because experience proved it. I spent 7 weeks doing work I previously paid others to do. Cleaning, painting, serving, following instructions from people who make in a year what I spent in a month. That work didn't diminish me. It revealed how much I'd used money to avoid seeing people I claimed to help through charity. Writing checks is easy. Showing up is hard. I did both. Only one taught me anything." He stops, reads what he's written, deletes it. Starts again, deletes again. The truth is harder to articulate than he expected. After an hour, he leaves the study. The statement isn't due for 2 more weeks. He needs more time, not to craft better language, to figure out if what he's experiencing is actual change or just sophisticated adaptation to consequence he can't avoid. 90 days after sentencing, Morrison returns to Judge Caprio's courtroom. Same chamber, same bench, different man. He's completed 70 hours of service, paid all fines, attended 3 of 4 defensive driving sessions. He carries the written statement printed on plain paper. No letterhead, no legal formatting. Just words he wrote himself after weeks of attempting and deleting and finally confronting what he actually learned. Caprio reviews the compliance documentation, service supervisor reports, payment confirmations, attendance records, everything in order. He looks up at Morrison standing at the defense table. "You've met the basic requirements, but compliance isn't understanding. Read your statement." Morrison unfolds the paper. His hands are steadier than they were 12 weeks ago, but his voice carries awareness that wasn't there before. I entered this court believing my contributions to society earned me consideration under law. I was wrong, not because the judge lectured me, because the consequence taught me. He pauses. I spent 70 hours doing work I'd previously paid others to do while ignoring their existence. I cleaned bathrooms used by people I'd never met. I painted buildings I donated money to but never visited. I served food to families whose names I'll never know. His voice doesn't waver. That work didn't humble me through hardship. It humbled me through proximity. I couldn't avoid seeing people I'd spent decades reducing to statistics and funding proposals. Morrison continues. I claim my time cost thousands per minute. That claim revealed something I didn't recognize then. I'd monetized my existence so completely that I couldn't conceive of value that couldn't be calculated. 10 hours cleaning a shelter, worth nothing on a balance sheet, worth everything to the people who eat there and need those bathrooms functional. He looks up from the paper. I still have wealth. I still run businesses. I still make decisions with financial implications. But I no longer believe those facts exempt me from the same rules that apply to everyone else. Caprio listens without interruption. Morrison reaches the final paragraph. This court asked if I understand the relationship between wealth and accountability. Here's my answer. Wealth doesn't eliminate accountability, it magnifies it. Because the more resources you control, the more damage you can cause when you believe rules don't apply. I caused that damage, not through violence, through arrogance, through the belief that writing checks purchased exemption from showing up. I was wrong, and that wrongness is now part of my permanent record, which is appropriate, because it was part of my character long before this court forced me to recognize it. He folds the paper. Caprio stands. Mr. Morrison, 70 hours completed, 30 remaining, fines paid, driving course nearly finished. Probation period continues for 9 more months. During that time, any violation brings you back here for immediate review. Morrison nods. I understand, Your Honor. Caprio's expression is unreadable. Do you, because understanding means change behavior when no one's watching, not just compliance when I am. Morrison's answer comes without hesitation. I'm still figuring that out, Your Honor, but I know the question now. That's more than I knew 90 days ago. Caprio allows himself the smallest nod. Then keep working. Finish your hours. Write that truth into your actions, not just your statement, because character isn't what you say in courtrooms. It's what you do in parking lots when you're late and no one's watching. He pauses. This review is complete. Compliance status acceptable. Final review in 9 months. Dismissed. Subrashwarni. Morrison walks out of the courtroom. No cameras this time. No media coverage. Just a man leaving with 30 hours of service remaining and 9 months of scrutiny ahead. The question Caprio posed echoes. What will he do when no one's watching? The answer isn't written yet, but for the first time in decades, Vincent Morrison understands that money can't write it for him. Vincent Morrison walked into that courtroom believing his $340,000 donation purchased different treatment until 6 hours in a cell taught him that wealth can't negotiate with concrete walls. Judge Caprio didn't just fine him. He sentenced him to 70 hours of proximity with people he'd spent decades avoiding while claiming to help. Here's your question. When have you used success as permission to skip the rules others follow? What would happen if you couldn't delegate, couldn't pay your way out, couldn't avoid the consequence? This video is created for educational and inspirational purposes under fair use, not to defame or attack any individual. Thank you for staying with us until the very end. It means the world. If this story moved you, please like, subscribe, and share so more voices can join this journey. Until next time, stay strong, stay awake, and I'll see you in the next video.